So hi, welcome to the Good Noise Podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with,
Christo from Bad Sons.
and we're asking some questions today about the new album, Apocalypse Whenever. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to it so far?
Thank you. It's been wonderful. Yeah, releasing new music is always a really great thing. It's kind of what we do. But there could be anxiety tied to that sometimes. But this time around, the reception's been really warm, and that's been awesome. And like we started the tour at the same time as the album was released, so it's cool that like every show that passes, you can just see that many more people that are familiar with the new music, and it's been really fun to watch in real time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Album
it's
rocks,
really
by the
cool.
way.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So, is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
Yeah, there is both. So the album cover, the meaning kind of like took shape a little bit later on the road once we had the title, the cover verse. Okay, sorry, I'm jumbling my
You're
words
okay.
here. But
Okay.
so I had this image. So there used to be this kind of like generic disco single like artwork that like every record label would use in the 70s when they were releasing just various disco singles.
hmm
And I thought this image was really cool. You can probably look it up after this like disco single album cover or something.
Yeah.
And there's something about that image that I really liked. And on that image, though, it's just kind of like a woman's lips, and she's kind of has her mouth's closed and it's kind of pouty. But there was something really cool about it, and I loved the cover, the colors. And once the album title came along, and that was a bit later, what sort of happened was uh, we wanted to kind of like alter the image a little bit to where instead of like the pouty kind of thing, like her having this almost kind of like manic sort of smile, I felt like that paired with the title. And we kind of were sort of referencing like some early like the Cars album covers. We just wanted it to have this kind of interesting juxtaposition of like this sort of sexy disco feel with this kind of like manic crazy vibe. I don't know.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. And the title.
Yeah, so the title came to be, originally the working title for this record was A Moment of Reflection.
Oh.
And the idea of that being kind of like you see your whole life flash before your eyes after like a near death experience. And that was sort of the premise for the record. And then one day I just felt like we loved the title, like in the sense that it sounded elegant, it rolled off the tongue, it's in the lyrics quite a few times, but it just didn't feel like a bold enough statement to like encapsulate the record as a whole. So one day I was just taking a shower before going to the studio, and that title, Apocalypse Whenever, just kind of like sort of flashed into my head, and it was like something from way back when, like an old joke. And I was like, I just kind of knew at that moment, like, oh fuck, I think that's it.
Yeah.
And it really just kind of tied everything together, and it helped that it was the same amount of syllables as A Moment of Reflection. It helped swapping out those lyrics, made it kind of easy.
For sure.
For sure.
So I want you to tell us your favorite lyric off this album and the meaning behind it.
Oh, that's tough. There, there are a lot of lyrics on this record that I'm really stoked about. I don't know exactly what my very favorite one would be. Let me think here for a second.
Mhm.
You know what? Yeah, I'll stick with that song while we're talking about it. I really like the lyrics in the chorus. It says, life tried to make me somebody I'm not, can't separate from me, I'm all I've got, life's not been pretty, but I'm still not ready to die, I've never felt so alive.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll stay that one for today.
All right.
hmm
Very good.
Perfect. So, would you be able to tell us a little bit about your writing process for this album?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the way that our band works, it kind of, we do all sorts of different things. Oftentimes what will happen is I'll put together some demos. I write music a lot at home on my own time, and then I'll sort of send them out to the guys, and whichever songs are sort of getting everyone excited, what we'll do is then we'll take that into our rehearsal studio, and we'll start playing the music all together, and then sort of flesh out the song, the four of us, and then we'll involve our producer, and kind of it goes that way. Sometimes the song will kind of just fall out of thin air. Someone will play a riff in the room and somebody else hears it and starts playing on top of it, and the music kind of starts falling like dominoes. And then sometimes, it'll be like we had a Dropbox while we were making this album where we would just kind of like put in little ideas, whether it be visual or musical, and essentially like it was sort of a place for us to all be able to just go in and listen to whatever was happening. And so a couple of songs, there's like a track called Nightclub, and there's a track called Silently Screaming, which, you know, like I said, I would be putting demos into the Dropbox, and whichever ones the guys would like, we'd do. In the cases of those two songs, Gavin's really good at making sort of like soundscapes and beats and kind of like interesting rhythms. So he put some files in there, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I kind of took it and put some music on top of it and sort of wrote a song around like these kinds of like synth pads and rhythms he was making. So it's kind of like whatever gets the job done. We're just always the main thing is we're just trying to get inspired. There has to be some sort of initial spark of inspiration that kind of gets the ball rolling.
I love how organic it is.
Oh yeah, it's never forced. I feel like when you try and force it, those are often the songs that just turn out like okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So before this album, were all of your songs made in person in your practice space?
You know, it's kind of always been. There's always an element of both things. And what we do, there's a lot of individual work. Like I said, I'll usually kind of write and record demos in my home studio, wherever that is, and then bring it to the guys, and then we'll flesh them out together.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was definitely, you know, a lot of that this time around, because there were periods where we weren't, you know, seeing each other for a couple of weeks at a time. But
yeah,
you know, it wasn't incredibly different. Like there were still songs on this record that, like, there's a song Peachy that literally just, we were recording. It was towards the very beginning of our sessions in 2019, that December. And we were recording a song called Grace, and Gavin had his synthesizer out, and he just started kind of playing this part. And I was like, that's really cool. I was like, and then we were like, let's go into the live, let's take a break. So we went into the live room, and Gavin kind of sat down at the piano. I sat down at the drums, and the rest of the guys like had shakers and kind of were picking up whatever instruments were around the room. And we kind of, there's a cool, our photographer and videographer Lupe, who's on tour with us, he was actually in the studio that day. So there's a cool video capturing us kind of at that song just sort of falling out. And you know, yeah, it was really fun. So in a lot of ways, and also in a lot of ways, to answer your question, it was different making this album, but in some ways it was also like sort of what, in varying forms, what we've always known.
That's super rad. So what song on the album took longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
I don't know. Well, the song that's been around for the longest is the song called Symphony of Lights. That song, actually, I wrote that as we were recording our Mystic Truth album. We remember we were in the studio, and I was like, sometimes you get that feeling of like, well, maybe we need one more song. And so that one sort of came, and I remember I was like, this is something really special, but it just felt like we didn't have the time that we needed to like give it the proper life that it wanted to have. So we decided to hold on to it for later, and I'm glad we did. But that song kind of sort of arrived pretty fully formed once it did happen. So it's been around for the longest, but it did take the longest to write. I mean, I think maybe a song like, there was a lot of initial writing and then revisiting lyrics for me on this album. I had to like, you know, sometimes it's easy to like write technically a whole song in a day or in like a couple of hours. And it can be, well, you know, if you've been doing it for as long as us, it can be like a song. It's a presentable song. But for me, that wasn't ever going to cut it. It needed to be like, it's always about going above and beyond and kind of going past your threshold for what you think you're capable of. So there was a lot of rewriting, and songs like Silently Screaming, Life Was Easier, Apocalypse Whenever, those all definitely benefited from that. I would say maybe one of the toughest ones lyrically to write was Apocalypse Whenever, just because there was always that kind of pressure of like, this is going to be the opening song. We knew that from the beginning, and this needs to kind of like really set the stage. And so making that happen out of thin air can be quite difficult, but you know, the juice is always worth the squeeze.
Sure. And your favorite on the album?
It changes from day to day. I really am. Lately, I've been really partial to the song Life Was Easier, When It Only Cared About Me. It's been really fun to play live. I also really enjoy, there's a song called Electric Circus, which I think people have been really sort of kind of surprised by and really enjoying amongst our fans. So that's another favorite of mine.
Hell yeah. Solid picks.
So would you be able to tell us where your headspace was at while you were creating this album?
Yeah, kind of all over the place. I think sort of we were handling the situations of the world kind of like everybody else, rolling with the punches, not really sure what was happening the majority of the time, but trying to sort of stay sane and navigate through. And that's kind of a lot what I think the lyrical themes on the album are sort of talking about is just kind of trying to find your place. And ultimately it's an album about love and you know, not losing sight of the important things of life and kind of taking the time to like smell the roses and really not take any of the time that you're given for granted. So yeah, the headspace was definitely I was in a really creative headspace all the while. Like I felt like even though the world was kind of going crazy, like we had this safe haven, which was either the studio or just music itself to kind of get lost in, and really like that sort of took precedent over everything else. And like that was sort of a really sacred thing, having that ability to like really dive into the music and like really sort of pour our souls out into the album was kind of like a saving grace. So I think I felt really appreciative of having that throughout the album.
For sure. I'm glad you guys had an outlet.
For sure.
Yeah, you know, it's something we don't take for granted.
Definitely.
Sure. Yeah.
So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this album for the first time? Should they do it in the car with friends, in the dark with headphones on, workout album, party album? What do you personally recommend?
I think it can serve all of those purposes. I think it just sort of depends on what you're in the mood for. I would say maybe I think it's fun to listen to on a drive, but I also think this album is really great for just kind of like sit down. If you have a record player and some nice speakers, like throw it on, or you know, sit down, put some headphones on, whatever it is. I think it's this album is very like it can be enjoyed in a solitary environment or a communal sort of thing. I'd say whatever is your preference, but definitely listen to the whole thing front to back. And so maybe a solitary the first time.
All right.
And when you finally got the masters, how did you listen to it for the first time?
I plugged my laptop into my like speakers, the systems at home that I used to record, and I just kind of like put it on and sort of closed my eyes and sat in my living room and just let it play. And that was a really cool feeling. I was really stoked at the end of that.
That's sick.
Good. Yeah. So this one should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words, no more, no less.
Really fucking awesome.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
Accurate.
So in that same train of thought, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want listeners to have while going through the album?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, it's an album that deals a lot with sort of self-reflection and introspection and love, and there's a lot of nostalgia that plays through it. But ultimately, I think there's like a lot of kind of underlying hope and just a sense of gratitude for life, regardless of how imperfect it can be and how difficult it can be. Yeah, maybe gratitude or something.
I like that.
All
we
the
don't
feels.
get that one enough.
Yeah. So for this question, I want you to picture you're on tour. You're at a gas station for a rest stop. You're going in. What is your snack of choice?
If I'm gonna get something at a gas station, it's probably gonna be those like Sabra hummus, like little thing. You know, it's like the crackers and the hummus that come together, and you like open it up, and probably one of those types of things, or like one of those perfect peanut bars.
Oh,
All right.
You said so. Since if you would go into a gas station, where do you guys usually stop if not like a gas station?
Well, yeah, because we're in the bus, so it stops overnight when we're sleeping. So there's less of that than when we're touring in the van. But sometimes we'll, you know, have a little rest stop. If we're ever in Texas, there's this like rest stop chain called Buc-ee's that they just kind of like have everything, and we always make a habit of trying to stop there whenever we get an opportunity to. I'm sure we will on this tour. We did on the last one.
That's
right.
good. Buc-ee's rocks.
So if the band was a dish, what dish would the band be and why?
Oh, good question. I think it changes sort of like song by song, or like every album I feel like is sort of would be more of like a several course meal. I want to say just like sushi because that's my favorite food, but I don't know if there's any like real life ties into why that is beyond the fact that I'm hungry and I want to eat sushi right now. But I feel like this album kind of gives me like a like a raspberry sorbet vibe. Like, you ever have those like Talenti sorbets? It's like
Yeah.
that raspberry flavor. I feel like maybe it has to do with the color of the album too, but
And just
Yeah.
like the fact that like the album kind of radiates like summer vibes in a way, despite you guys putting it out in
Exactly.
January. Like, it's definitely like
Yeah.
a windows down, eating ice cream, kind of relax kind of vibe,
sweet and it's sophisticated at the same time, and it's summery and it's refreshing.
for sure.
For sure. There you go. So for these last couple questions, we're actually going to shift away from music, if that's okay with you.
Please.
Awesome. So we're actually going to go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on
Okay.
death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
Definitely like a big sushi meal,
Mhm.
with like a pitcher of beer and like a thing of like hot sake.
There you go. Perfect.
I can tell you're craving sushi. I really hope you're able to get it at some point in the next couple of days.
I had some yesterday for my first time on this tour. We were in New York, so it's a good sushi town. So
hmm
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and we have another day off there tomorrow, so I'm gonna get sushi again.
Oh,
Good.
yeah. Very
yeah.
good. So if you could live in one fiction world for a week, where would you live?
One fictional world, like a place. Oh, you know what? Fuck it. I always wanted to live like in Hogwarts. You kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
What house are you?
Probably Gryffindor,
Solid.
Makes
just
sense.
because like everyone, most people I feel like would want that. It's the, but there's sort of a sex appeal to Slytherin, but I'll say Gryffindor.
Okay.
Yeah, I respect that. So I have the honor of asking the last question. Every single person we've spoken to has actually said it is the most important question.
Okay.
What is your favorite color?
Okay. I'll throw you for a loop here. I don't really have one. When I was in elementary school, my favorite color was orange, because I was like in third grade, and there was this like hot like eighth grader named, her name was Priscilla or something, and her favorite color was orange, and I was like,
Yeah.
mine too. And then it actually was for a long time.
Mhm.
And then but I really like color combinations. Like, I really like that. Actually, since we're on the track of orange, like if you kind of get like a nice orange and a nice pink together,
Mhm.
like something about those two colors, it's kind of like, the peachy kind of vibe, which is fitting for this record. So today I'll say those two. Those are, and pink, orange, or like pink and green is a really nice combination too. Pink, green, and orange. There's something about those colors that's been sitting right with me. And actually, if you get that's why our album, the new album, like they asked us what colors we wanted to make for vinyl. So it's a pink album cover. You pull out the green, like translucent disc, and there's like an orange label on it, and it's really satisfying to the eyes.
That's
For
sick.
sure.
Nice.
This is completely off topic, but because you brought it up, did you ever shoot your shot with Priscilla?
No,
Oh,
no, I didn't.
Oh,
I
man.
didn't. Actually, I might have. Maybe she knew I had a crush on her. I don't know, but
come on.
All right. Well, on that note, that's all the questions we have for you today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
if listen to the album. If we're coming to a city near you soon, come see us on tour, and just get outside and like go for a hike, or if you live by the ocean, go to the beach or something, and eat some sushi.
Oh,
There
yeah.
you go.
All right. Well, thank you for now. This has been Christo from Bad Sons, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.